He was the original Hercules, a chiseled icon who inspired generations. But behind Steve Reeves's heroic image was a fire fueled by betrayal, pride, and a grudge that never died. His rise to stardom was legendary, but his feud with Raymond Burr was personal, and it cut deeper than any sword on set. What happened between these two Hollywood powerhouses? And why did Reeves walk away from fame when he was at the top? The truth is more shocking than the legend. This is the real story of Steve Reeves and the rivalry that haunted him for life. Stay with us. You'll never see Hercules the same way again. Steve Reeves was born Stephen Lester Reeves on January 21, 1926, in the small town of Glasgow, Montana. He spent his early years surrounded by the rugged landscapes of the American Northwest. When the Great Depression hit, his family moved west to California in search of a better life. From a young age, Reeves demonstrated an unusual level of ambition and self-discipline. He discovered bodybuilding as a teenager and immediately found his purpose. What started as a way to improve his health quickly turned into a life mission. He trained relentlessly, pushing his body to new limits with every session. His dedication bordered on spiritual. He attended Oakland Technical High School and, after graduating, enlisted in the U.S. Army. Serving with honor during World War II in the Pacific Theater, Reeves stood out not just for his bravery, but for his extraordinary physical strength. After the war, he returned home and set his sights on the competitive bodybuilding world. Between 1946 and 1950, Steve Reeves dominated the sport. He won Mr. Pacific Coast, Mr. America, Mr. World, and ultimately, Mr. Universe. His physique wasn't just muscular, it was artistic, perfectly proportioned, classically symmetrical, and natural. He looked like a statue come to life. At a time when size often mattered more than shape, Reeves redefined what a champion should look like. Hollywood took notice. His look, charisma, and natural charm caught the attention of casting directors. Reeves began studying acting, working on voice and diction to prepare for the screen. He landed a few minor roles in American films, but it was in Europe, specifically Italy, where his career truly exploded. In 1958, Reeves was cast as the title character in Hercules, a modestly budgeted Italian production. No one expected it to become a global blockbuster, but it did. The film grossed over $100 million worldwide and launched Reeves into international superstardom. Suddenly, the sword and sandal genre was born, and Steve Reeves was its king. He followed Hercules with a string of mythological epics: Hercules Unchained, The Giant of Marathon, The Last Days of Pompeii, The Trojan Horse, The Thief of Baghdad, all massive hits across Europe and Latin America. He became one of the highest-paid actors in the world. Fans couldn't get enough of his heroic image, his calm strength, and that unmistakable screen presence. What set Reeves apart was his authenticity. He wasn't just acting strong, he was strong. He dubbed many of his own lines in multiple languages, reinforcing his reputation as not only a performer, but a professional. But behind the fame, Reeves held fast to his beliefs. Beliefs that would later isolate him from the very industry that made him famous. Unlike many of his successors, Reeves stood firmly against the use of anabolic steroids. He believed in natural development, clean nutrition, and holistic health. He published books like Building the Classic Physique, The Natural Way, advocating for a return to balanced, healthy living. He cautioned against the growing obsession with bulk and unnatural size. In the 1980s and 90s, when bodybuilding became saturated with performance-enhancing drugs, Reeves's voice became a beacon for those seeking authenticity in the sport. Steve Reeves was ahead of his time. While others chased protein-heavy diets and brute strength, Reeves advocated for cardiovascular health, moderate protein intake, and a balanced, holistic approach to fitness. In an era obsessed with bulk and brawn, he championed symmetry, proportion, and longevity, concepts that were mocked then but are now cornerstones of modern wellness philosophy. As bodybuilding evolved into a drug-fueled spectacle of bloated muscle mass and unhealthy extremes, Reeves became increasingly disillusioned. The classic Grecian physique he once popularized had been replaced with swollen, unnatural forms. He mourned the loss of beauty in the sport, the artistry of the human form replaced by sheer mass. Through it all, Reeves stood firm, a man of discipline and vision, refusing to compromise for fame or trend. But while the modern direction of bodybuilding disappointed him, it was nothing compared to the bitterness he felt toward one man in Hollywood, Raymond Burr. Steve Reeves hated Raymond Burr. Though Reeves always maintained a composed, respectful public persona, his loathing for Burr ran deep, and it was personal. The two were polar opposites. Reeves was stoic, humble, and grounded. Burr was theatrical, domineering, and known for his political maneuvering behind the scenes in Hollywood. To Reeves, Burr embodied the corruption and ego that polluted the entertainment industry. Their paths crossed socially, perhaps professionally, and Reeves never forgot the dismissive remarks, the condescension. He believed Burr mocked his career, sneered at his accomplishments, and saw him as little more than a muscle-bound novelty. And for a man who had fought so hard to prove he was more than a body, that stung deeply. To Reeves, Burr wasn't just a rival. He was the face of a broken system. A system built on manipulation, favoritism, and power plays. Reeves chose integrity over influence. Burr thrived on politics. That difference defined their feud, and Reeves never forgave him for it. Despite his fame, Reeves struggled to find lasting love during the height of his career. His first marriage, to Sandra Smith in 1955, ended in just 1 year. Hollywood life, with its chaos, long shoots, and constant travel, was not built for stable relationships. But in 1963, Reeves married Alan Zarwich, a woman of European aristocracy. This marriage would last over 25 years and see him through the peak of his international career. Alan was by his side through it all: the sets, the stress, the spotlight. Her death in 1989 left Reeves heartbroken. Years later, in 1994, he found companionship again with Deborah Ann Engelhorn. This final chapter of his personal life was one of peace. Together, they worked on health publications and quietly managed Reeves's legacy from their home in Southern California. By the late 1960s, Reeves retired from acting after suffering a serious shoulder injury during a chariot stunt. Rather than cling to fame, he stepped away. He spent his later years riding horses, managing his ranch, and writing books on fitness. He continued to speak at expos and bodybuilding events where fans greeted him with reverence. Even as age crept in, Steve Reeves remained a towering symbol of natural strength and enduring discipline. He wasn't just admired for the way he looked, he was revered for what he stood for. But even Hercules could not outrun time. In late April 2000, Reeves underwent exploratory surgery in a battle against lymphoma. Just a few days later, on May 1st, he passed away from a blood clot. He died at Palomar Hospital in Escondido, California, the very same hospital where his second wife had passed years before. With his death came the end of an era, but not the end of his message. Bodybuilding should be a health-oriented sport, not a drug-oriented sport. That statement wasn't just his belief, it was his rebellion. In an industry that increasingly embraced performance-enhancing drugs and unsustainable physiques, Steve Reeves was a lone voice for purity and discipline. He became a legend not by taking shortcuts, but by doing it the hard way, the honest way. He stood against the synthetic tide, and walked away from the spotlight to protect that integrity. While he did harbor resentment for individuals like Raymond Burr and the system that celebrated what he saw as hypocrisy, Reeves never allowed bitterness to define him. Instead, he used his influence to show the world what true strength looked like. The strength to say no, to live on your own terms, and to be proud of a body earned, not bought. Steve Reeves could have had it all: endless fame, fortune, and power. But he chose peace, principles, and purpose. He chose authenticity over attention. And in doing so, he became more than a cinematic Hercules. He became a real-life hero, whose legacy reminds us that true greatness starts from within, not from the camera, but from character. In an age where everything feels manufactured, his life reminds us that true greatness doesn't come from chasing applause. It comes from standing firm when the world tries to sway you. And that's exactly what Steve Reeves did, right until the end. If you enjoyed uncovering the untold truth behind Steve Reeves's legacy, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden stories from Hollywood's golden age. Hit the bell so you never miss an iconic revelation.